Welcome to this episode of the Greater Phoenix Chambers podcast, Let's Talk Business Phoenix, with your host, me, Todd Sanders, President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Chamber. In each episode, we're going to tackle important issues and subjects affecting businesses, our community, and the state today. Through relevant, timely topics, this podcast serves as the business community's voice with a mission of championing business growth, identifying problems that restrict economic development, and convening community leaders to move Phoenix forward. Well, welcome to the Let's Talk Business Phoenix podcast. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to have Dr. Andria Fourlis, who is the Superintendent of Mesa Public Schools, I think the largest school system in the state. Welcome, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here with you.
Well, it's such a pleasure, and we've had, I think, a few years of being able to work with you and your team, and I think really evolved what we're doing as far as preparing kids, or I should say young adults, for college and career. But why don't we start a little bit personally with you? I would encourage you all to read Dr. Fourlis' bio. It's very impressive. But let's learn something about you that's not on your bio. Tell us something that we wouldn't find on your bio.
Oh my goodness. I started my educational career in Mesa Public Schools. Was raised by a single mom, and she could afford a little apartment in Mesa, and we rode our bikes. She dropped us off in the morning, and she was a reporter, her first big girl job at the Mesa Tribune. So
I remember that, absolutely.
Yeah. So most people don't know that I started my educational career right in Mesa.
You know, we're hearing a lot about challenges in education, currently hearing about a shortage of teachers. What drove you to go into the field?
Well, this is an interesting story. Might be a little long, so...
That's okay. We want to hear it.
Okay. Well, when I was a little girl, every opportunity that I had, I wanted to play school, whether it was with my dolls or whether it was at the grocery store, and I would arrange apples and oranges, and that was my classroom. So I was always figuring out a way to play school. Well, I think I was driving my mom crazy, and so she found out that I could start kindergarten when I was 4. And my mom came home and said, okay, you're going to be able to go to school. So I was so ready, and I had my outfit ready, I had my backpack ready, I had my lunchbox ready, because I was going to school. This was going to be the real thing. So when my mom picked me up after the first day of kindergarten, she picked me up, and she could tell I was not at all happy. And she said, so how was it? Was it the best day ever? And I said, it was the worst day ever, and I'm never going back. And she said, why? I said, Mom, you didn't tell me I wasn't going to be the teacher. So my life started off saying I was going to be a teacher. And so I really understood that school was a great place for me. And once I realized that I could learn something as the student, not just to be the teacher, I have always found success in school. School spoke to me. It was a place I felt safe. It was a place where I could share my ideas. When I couldn't share my ideas, created a lot of frustration. So I always thought about someday I'm going to be the teacher that allows kids to share their ideas, to pursue those ideas, and think a little differently about what schooling can be. So that was my motivation way back at 50 years ago.
Well, and that's a great story. You're one of the lucky few who always knew what you were going to do when you decided that you were going to leave the house and be a grown-up. So mentioning the teacher shortage, what's changed in the profession from that time to today, if anything? Have things changed that much?
A significant change. So when I started teaching in 1991, if I think about the challenges that I faced as a teacher compared to what our teachers are facing every single day, they are radically different. I think that what has happened is over time, schools have served as the hearts of communities. But what has changed over time is a change in family structure, a change in how we work, how we live, how we play, the demands on our children, the fast-paced life that they have. That has all changed in our communities, which means it's also changed in every single classroom. So our teachers are responding to the various needs that students have, not just academically and behaviorally. As a teacher, you know that you're going to work with academics and behavior. I don't think as a teacher I ever understood the power of working on the emotional wellness of our profession as well as our students. I think that's the biggest change.
And it is significant. And I think we can't talk about change without reflecting on the pandemic. And I think schools, again, front and center on that, and probably in many more ways than we can imagine. Talk to us a little bit about that. In terms of how you weathered that and what changes came as a result of that time.
Well, I became the superintendent July 1st of 2020. So I only know COVID. I only know superintendenting through COVID. And it was the hardest time in my career. I think that what happened during COVID, and we've learned a lot from this, what happened throughout COVID is we quickly digitized the American place called school. We sent it into the homes of America, and we asked our parents and loved ones to wrap around students and help to educate them at home. And then what happened was that school became very, very visible. And we were not using our very best teaching all of the time. This became crisis teaching for teachers. How can we quickly provide content in the most accessible ways in many communities that had not ever had access? So we were bridging all of these gaps. So now all of a sudden we're sending the American schooling system into homes. We are now making our work very visible, and our community saw where the holes are in our public education system. And so we have a responsibility and a sense of urgency to close up those holes, that there are many gaps in what we provide our children.
Hey, you're right. I mean, it became very clear as the water receded that, for instance, I know we did a drive. We had a shortage of about 100,000 laptops for kids to be able to learn at home. Clearly a lot of learning, and I can imagine for you, it had to be an interesting time to be a leader, but that's where you test your leaders, right? Not when things are good. Clearly very difficult, but did we take away any good things from that time that we're using today?
Oh, absolutely. I think as an educational industry, we are known for being slow to change. COVID taught us we can change a whole lot faster than we ever thought that we could. We can be more nimble, we can be more adaptive, we can respond to personalization faster than we ever thought that we could. It's also helping us to understand what is most important in the schooling of our children, of our young people. What is most important to them? What's most important to their families? It's making us think differently about seat time in our high schools. Do you need 180 days to demonstrate that you understand English 1? Can you demonstrate that in new and different ways? We also, COVID also taught us that our kids are far more tech savvy than we ever could imagine. Now, they may not be tech savvy in all of our standards that we want them to do, but they're very adept at accessing information. And so we need to think about how do we help them understand to curate the information, making sure that it is credible and that it is useful information. And how do we use information for good versus working against our communities?
Well, it's such a good point, and especially the point about kids. I think we underestimate how comfortable they are. Probably harder for the parents to make that switch than, in terms of jobs, than it was for these kids to transition. And hopefully we can use that now going forward. So recently, within the last few years, the Phoenix Chamber Foundation through ElevateEd started a partnership with Mesa Public Schools to work together and really start to think about how we can do the right thing by kids in terms of college and career and putting them in the right spot. What drove you to decide that was the right direction for Mesa Public Schools?
Well, as we talked about COVID, one of the things that we also learned is that school must be relevant. And so this partnership with ElevateEd has increased relevancy for our students and intentionality around the work we do as educators to better support our students. So when we're thinking about high demand, high wage jobs, we need to think about how do we align our systems so that our students have access to those high wage, high demand jobs, and that we are providing as many learning opportunities, not just in our classrooms, but also partnering with business through work-based learning experiences, job shadowing, internships, and so on. We can't wait for our kids to decide what they're going to do and say, well, once you graduate from high school, then you start thinking about it. That's too late in today's world. And so we have to get them on a pathway where they see opportunity for a lifestyle and a career that will bring them joy, but will also allow them to be self-sufficient in this world.
It is so true. 30 years ago, much different world in terms of how you thought about college and career. Today, we should probably be talking to kids in elementary school and middle school. Clearly, this partnership is probably different for you. I know for us, a lot of the discussion prior to being able to work hand in hand with you was, well, it's got to be the fault of education that we're not getting what we need. Turns out, when we looked in the mirror, we're a big part of the problem. We weren't talking to you, we weren't partnering with you, we weren't telling you what we needed. So you were having to guess. As far as you see this evolve, how do you see this program evolving at Mesa Public Schools, and how do you think business should be engaging with you?
I think that we need to, right now with the ElevateEd model, I'm really excited that we're focusing on our high school students, but I think as we look to the future, we need to push that down into our junior highs, into our elementary schools. And we also need to bring our parents alongside us to help them to understand. So I chose to be a teacher because that was a profession that was visible to me. Many of the professions that our kids are going to go into are not visible to them today because they haven't been invented yet. So how do we talk about their possibilities? How do we look for the talents in our children? What are they naturally talented in and curious about? And how do we ask them questions that will take them down a pathway to say, I think you might want to be interested. I was at an elementary school today talking with kindergarten through third grade students that were already demonstrating the curiosity of engineering mindset. And so asking them, wow, you sound like an engineer. I love your language of being an engineer. And they looked at me and I said, I know it's a hard word to spell, but it's something that I think you would be really good at and interested in. Education should not be separate from college and career preparation. That needs to work side by side throughout our entire school system, not just with our high school students.
Well, I think that's a good perspective, and I like the idea that we need to be talking to parents too. One of the challenges we've had when we start talking to groups is we mentioned the phrase CTE, college and career and technical education, and immediately people think about the shop class from 30 years ago,
the old voc ed, right?
And the data tells us kids who are in these CTE focused areas tend to graduate at a higher level, and they go to college at a higher level. You are all in on CTE. Tell us about
Absolutely.
that and why.
Oh, I think it goes back to relevance and purpose. I think that when students have this opportunity to not only graduate with a high school diploma, but they also graduate with an industry certificate, they are on a pathway to be able to see, understand, and align their time and make their time more worthy when they go into college or they go into the career world. So those industry certificates are so important to me, or those industry experiences, because that's an opportunity in high school for students to say, I thought that I wanted to go into the medical field. I pursued a certificate to become a certified nursing assistant, and I hated every minute of it. I'd want them to hate it in high school before they start incurring debt in higher education, or they say, oh, this is the only place that I'm going to apply. And then they become a disgruntled, horrible employee that they're in the wrong field. So I want them to try in high school when they're still in their home, when they're in a comfortable environment with their friends and their teachers and counselors that support them. So we need to that's why it's so important to me that we allow them to try in high school. But it's most important that they're understanding that they get to chart their future. They are in charge of the future rather than receiving this prescription that says, you're going to be a teacher, you're going to be a dentist, or you're going to be a farmer. No, there are so many options, and we need to let them see the breadth of what that looks like.
I couldn't agree more. Thinking about a parent who says, well, that's great, I'm glad those opportunities exist, but my kid's going to college. Why would I want my kid to be in a CTE course? Why is that relevant? Is there an answer to that?
There's a very simple answer. And we live in a world of and. We don't live in a world of or. I can talk a little bit about two of my daughters graduated from high school with certified nursing assistant certificates when they graduated. That was a leg up for them to go to become direct admit into the ASU nursing program. So this is really working in tandem. Those skills that they learned through that industry certificate and CTE courses in high school have made them leaders in their nursing programs. Many of these nursing students are coming in with, high GPA, high ACT, SAT scores, but have never given a blood pressure. They've never worked. They've never been into a hospital setting as an employee to even know that they would like to work in that environment. So I think that the conversation has to be about and. So when we're looking at our kids that are earning industry certificates in manufacturing, that leads them into a company. If they want to go straight from high school, they go into a company, they work at a manufacturing company that says, we want to invest in you and help to pay for you to go to college to accelerate your leadership skills or deepen your knowledge within our organization. So no longer do kids pick or. It's absolutely an and.
Well, I love the example, especially in nursing. While there's a demand, a huge demand.
Huge demand.
But it's ultra competitive. It's not
Very.
a guarantee that because there's a demand, you are going to get in. And giving kids not only the edge, but also the experience. Because to your point, like, well, I thought I was going to like this, but I really don't. Or I love it and I want to do more. That gives them that edge going into the college setting. So Thank you for that. I think that's such an important distinction for people to understand. It's not a, people do like to make this sort of a black and white question. It's not. And really, we're just lifelong learners.
If I could add on to that too, in my experience of working with many, many, many students over many, many, many years, what I would notice is that students that are in our career technical education programs, they have experiences that they can write about in their scholarship applications. They're more likely to get scholarships when they can talk about what they've done, what they've explored in their life, what they like, what they didn't like. Oftentimes, scholarship applications talk about, what were some of your biggest life lessons? What did you learn about yourself? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? They go back to talk about internships that were provided to them, classes that they took, and most of them were hands-on and those that were relevant or irrelevant that they talk about. So it's not, there's so many opportunities that the experience of career technical education provide to our students.
Well, and having gone through that with my son last year, I don't know how many essays, you're absolutely right. That would have been really helpful. So for those of you out there who are kids are going to be going through this process, good advice. This
is the mom in me.
It's 100% true. It's true. So I like that you talked about manufacturing. I are rapidly becoming a hub for advanced manufacturing all the way up through TSMC and the incredible $12 billion investment they're making here in Arizona. As we started to look around the state for high schools that were doing this kind of work in terms of advanced manufacturing, turns out that one stood out because it's the only one right now, and that's Mesa Public Schools. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, there is absolutely a need. And so we are fortunate that we have a lot of support for rapidly responding to the needs of what our community is identifying for us. And taking a look at manufacturing, we know that's where the jobs are growing. And so we had the ability to build manufacturing labs and also the gift of being able to hire the right teachers that are motivating these students to continue their interest in manufacturing. I also think that what's important as I go into those manufacturing classes, there's so many skills that are being built: communication skills, collaboration skills, all the things that we know that are happening in the workplace. So even if students are in our manufacturing courses that don't choose that pathway, they have learned skill sets that are going to take them other places. But this also gives an opportunity for manufacturing companies to come in, mentor our students, have conversations with them about all of the possibilities. So you might go into the manufacturing class and say, okay, this is not exactly what I want to do, but boy, am I good at project management. And so talking to our students about how that works, I think is important.
Well, also I think, again, perception, is this kind of a dirty, greasy kind of,
Oh,
what is it? What does it look like? What do these jobs look like?
Oftentimes, parents and educators and students don't know what the jobs look like. That's why they need these internships and they need industry partners to paint the picture of it's not greasy. Even automotive isn't greasy anymore. We used to think that was really greasy. Right now you go in and say, oh my, welding, there's virtual welders. I mean, there's lots of things that our kids are working with. So I think we need to change some of the stereotype. I think that's a really good point. We need to help many parents oftentimes understand what these current jobs are like and what the industries are today. They aren't what they used to be.
So true. And to go into any dealership with your car, the first thing they do is plug it in and find out what the computer's saying. And especially with electric cars, so fewer moving parts and more electronic parts that are really going to be what these kids are going to be working on, which is absolutely amazing. And this opportunity you're offering is really important. So part of our work with you is we actually took folks from our organization, from our foundation, and embedded them. They're college and career coaches. Why is that important?
Well, it's critical to the success of our students, but it is absolutely the magic. It's the secret sauce of this partnership is what I really believe. When you think about how you staff a typical high school, you've got principals, assistant principals, counselors, teachers, department chairs, and so on. Never in that lineup do we ever talk about college and career, coaches, these career coaches, going out into the industry, bringing opportunity to our students. That is something that we've been waiting for industry to knock on our door. We have not always had the door open. We have not had that pathway. So at those those career coaches are really, really important about bringing opportunity to us and then telling the story of what's happening in our schools back into the career world. So I know that I will say that is the secret sauce of what we are doing with Elevate Ed. That is the most important role that we have developed together. And I only see it getting larger.
Well, and thank you for opening the door. I mean, that's what it took, and we really appreciate the confidence that you had and the trust that you had, because I know these kids mean everything to you.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of partnership, one of the things that we need to do more of is provide internships. And when we mention internships, we get a lot of hands raised, and then when we say high school kids, they all go down, unless they've done it before, and then they become incredible advocates for these kids. Why are internships important, and why should businesses consider a kid in high school for an internship?
Our high school students are curious. They are ready to be molded and to be shaped into what the possibilities are. They're looking for possibilities. And so when we open the door to our high schools, and I will tell you, we're learning this ourselves, as we're the largest employer in the city of Mesa. We are looking to start hiring our high school students to fill our vacant positions in our own schools. And we are realizing they have voice and ideas when they are asked. They are not only our next workforce, but they're also our next body of consumers. And so we need to be listening to them with 2 ears. Those are our future parents that are going to be bringing their kids to Mesa Public Schools. Our high school students are those who are going to be the next consumer of what's being designed, and the prototypes of today are going to be what they're purchasing for tomorrow. So we have to hear from them. They provide so much impact, and they will lead us into the future if we let them. So it is important to have them in these internship opportunities.
Well, and what I like about them is that they're real. These are real opportunities. Yeah. I think what sort of motivated us to sort of decide to move forward with the internship side. We were actually in another state, and we went to a company that had interns, and they're paid interns that work a full semester. And we heard a lot of good things, and the kids were there, and it all seemed a little bit too good to be true. And so we had an opportunity to talk to the IT department about this. And this is a virtual company, a very large company. And we said, all right, what are there obviously has to be a negative. And they said there's actually a negative. We said, what is it? They said, these kids are about 150% faster than we are.
Oh, yes.
So what they were bringing to the table was huge for that company. And to your point, that's your future workforce.
That is.
So
your future consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to touch on is dual enrollment. And when I think about the story of your daughters, the idea that you can be in high school and you could be taking college classes and getting credit for it before you even graduated. Tell us a little bit about why that's important and where you see that going.
Well, it's important because it provides a safe foundation for students to go into the world of whether they're choosing career first or college first. And so it's that same idea that in dual enrollment, you are enrolled in college level coursework with the surrounding support system that is comfortable to you in a high school. You're generally living at home with your family. You have your teachers that are familiar to you. You've got the counselor that's familiar. You've got your high school coaches. You have all of these people that are around you saying, yeah, you can do this. You don't have to wait until you go out into the world beyond high school to start your college career. So I think that's really what's important. The other is understanding and building the confidence, not just in the study habits of students, but in understanding when they leave, they can say, I've already done college, I've got this. And so in Mesa Public Schools, we're launching what we call the Graduation Plus model, that our goal is that our students graduate with a diploma plus college credit and or an industry certificate or a state seal that is honored by the Arizona Department of Education, such as a seal of biliteracy, service learning, and so on. Because a high school diploma used to be enough. It is no longer enough for children to be able to chart the path that they really want to have into the future of their workforce. And so we see it as a package. And as soon as we can get our kids into college credit, we know that we have a support system to wrap around them in our high school system.
Well, and I think about the example of your daughters, and when they do get to that first day of college, it's not the big mystery. Like they know sort of what to expect. Obviously, it's a different environment and there are different expectations, but they did this. They've proven that they can do it, and I think it probably takes some of that anxiety away and helps them succeed, especially if they're going into college with credit hours where they're saving money.
Right. A high school class syllabus and a college syllabus look very different. But if you can go through those syllabuses under the same roof of your high school, is a really safe place to do that.
Absolutely. Mom and dad are still there.
Yep.
So we've talked a lot about the work you're doing and the partnership. You've got a good audience of business leaders watching this. How can they be of service to you? How can they better partner with you or be allies to you?
I will tell you that oftentimes when we approach businesses and we start conversations, they're always thinking that we're looking for money. Mm-hmm. We're not looking for money. We want mentorship for our students. I want the investment to be in building relationships with our students and with our teachers. So the best way to get involved is to reach out to your school system and say, we want to be involved. We don't know what it looks like necessarily, but we want to help shape the future of our workforce. And we really want to improve the lives of the children that are coming out of our schools to create better communities. And so working together is the right way to do it. It doesn't have to be through paid internships. It doesn't have to be through, we will sponsor a carnival at your school. We're looking for bigger, deeper things than that say, I want people from all industries to come down and start talking with our 3rd and 4th graders. Talk to our teachers about really what are we looking for in the workforce. I would love business to come in and sit through a typical classroom in an elementary school, a junior high school, and say, you're still teaching that way? That's not how we talk about it at all. These are the questions we ask. This is how we engage our employees. So I would love to build kind of the business mindset and throughout our school system, not just waiting into high school.
Well, and I can speak from experience. You're open to those conversations. Which is really key, because I think sometimes the perception, they don't really want to hear, and no, you do. And it's a two-way conversation. Speaking of going to classes, as we wrap up, you this morning before you came here, maybe appropriately, you met with a bunch of kindergartners.
I did.
What'd you learn?
Oh my goodness. Well, I learned I was going to look at a new incentive program that one of our schools was putting together about getting kids to school on time. And they have started by engaging their students in STEM activities for the first few, about 20 minutes of the day. And so I saw problem solvers. I saw critical thinkers. I saw students that were working together to collaborate, that were thinking about how to solve the world's problems, their problems, right, in a very different way. And so my favorite was a little scholar, a 5-year-old, who was designing a cube. He wanted to design a cube out of straight tubes and connectors. And I said, why? And he goes, well, kind of like an ice cube. I said, all right. So I came back over to him and I was watching, and he was building it around his head. And I said, so why are you building this around your head? And he said, so I can see it better. That's the power of our kids.
100%. Well, thank you for that. We're going to wrap up with a quick lightning round to get to know you more as a person here.
Okay.
Since we know you have, ever since you were in kindergarten, you wanted to be a teacher. Favorite class in your educational journey that you took? My
favorite class was always English class. Every English class that I took, because I thought that there was a lot of opportunity for creativity and I didn't have to follow all the rules.
Okay. Least favorite class?
Math.
Okay. Math. I gotcha. First job?
My first job was in a restaurant.
What did you do?
Well, I was a hostess. And then many of you that are from Arizona or the Phoenix area are going to know that I rapidly moved from a hostess to being a waitress at DeBevick's. I was Dottie, the polka dot queen.
That is awesome. And I do remember that right off of
Highland.
Right by Highland and 16th Street.
You got it.
Excellent. Okay. And what did you learn?
I learned that my success was dependent upon my relationships with other people.
And that holds true today. And you can't say your current job, although I know it is a dream job. What is your dream job?
Middle school teacher.
All right. Well, with that, we will wrap it up. I want to not only thank you for your time here, but I think we know what you do on a daily basis. So I want to thank you for your leadership. It is must be really gratifying to be in a position where you're shaping the future of our state. So thank you.
And we are so grateful. Without partnerships, I couldn't do what I do.